All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Take people. I hope they edit that stuff out. All right, chapter 8, page 70 of 71 of chapter 8. If perchance you saw words such as those at the top of page 71, ani, anoki, ata, etc., would you be able to say what they mean?
Yes. Probably.
How does that go? Who is he and he is she and ma is what?
Mm-hmm. And me is who?
And me is who? Yeah.
And who is we?
And
This is a wonderful word. It is.
that is a good one, isn't it? Anaknu. All right, good then. We know Zeh, this, and Ayla, these, don't we? And we know this vocabulary: ohel, tent, aher, another, ek, how, interrogative, elef, thousand, tribe, clan, asher, who, which, that, behema, cattle, animals, gam, also, indeed, dam, blood, ha, interrogative particle, tahor, clean, pure, ka-asher, as, when, ki, because, for, that, kasil, stupid, dull, lama, why, ma, what, how, madua, wherefore, why, me, who, ani, poor, afflicted, shemen, oil, shofet, judge. Chapter 9, page 81. You'd be able to write out these suffixes, wouldn't you?
Maybe.
Yeah?
Starting to get a little thin.
Well, so this is the moment then, right, to thicken it up. E, ka, k, o, a, and nu, kem, ken, him, hen. These are going to be typical patterns, so important to know these right here, right? The kaf in the second person singular, and the kaf in the second person plural as well, but in the second person plural, kem, ken, and the meme is typical of the masculine, and the noon is typical of the feminine, right? And then the hey being typical of the third person, although the third masculine singular is holem vav. But the hey being typical of the third person, hem, hen, mame for masculine, and noon for feminine, right? So e, ka, k, o, a, right? And nu, kem, ken, him, hen.
How do you pronounce the first common plural?
Nu. Right?
And the second message?
Kem. Kem, ken, him, hen. So, take a look at those. Refresh your memory. I'm sure you've practiced writing those many times. But that's important because we're going to see these patterns of endings again. Right? Type 2 suffixes, you can kind of figure it out because they're very similar. Basically adds a vowel and a yod before the type 1 ending, pretty much, right? So you can kind of figure that out. Type 1 endings went on singular nouns. Type 2 endings go on plural nouns. Any questions about this? I wouldn't blame you if you lingered on page 81 for a moment. Vocabulary: o, or, Ayin, there is not. Off, nostril, nose, anger. Afayim, for a dual, nostrils. Boker, morning. Bakar, cows, herds, cattle. Interestingly, those are the same consonants, aren't they? Different vowels with the same consonants. Barakah, blessing. Hain, behold. Hine, behold, lo. Chatat, sin. Yesh, there is, there are. Kavod, glory, honor. Kali, vessel, utensil. Lechem, bread, food. Notice on the Segolit noun, like lechem, the accent's not unusually for a Segolit noun on the first syllable instead of the second syllable, like melech and other Segolit nouns like the evid. Lavad, alone, besides. Mishpacha, family, clan. Milchama, war, battle. Saviv, all around, surrounding. People, and Eitz, tree. Okay, any questions? Are we looking hard at page 81? Yeah, you should. But the quiz will be open mind and not open book. That's one part of it. That's the vocabulary part. You do whichever one you want first. I did my name first. Do your name first. I'm sorry. Don't forget to put your name on there. Cyrus.
I like phone number.
I'm not very good at that. Especially when people are writing in Hebrew. I don't recognize that handwriting very easily. Who? All right. Yeah, that'll do it. All right. So there's one reason. Anything we can help with?
Less hours at work.
So is it just kind of a matter of putting time in, basically?
This week has been exercise. I would say it's been but I'm trying to catch up with applying the rules from the other chapters. In other words, we go through every night, and vocabulary is not a huge issue, but then I'm having to go back and learn the rules for pluralization of various things, and that's a real time.
I think for me, it's the rules are now stacking up to a point that it's not like 2 chapters of glancing back over the rules. And remember, now it's we're 6 chapters long. And I understand we don't have to have every single one memorized, but on the other hand, I want to have a graph that's like, okay, so you got all the rules for the pronominal suffix, and then you go to the rules for the adjective, and it's just like,
and I doubt, no matter how hard you try, I doubt you're going to be able to keep all those under your belt.
What's the best thing to focus on? Is it
the thing that's going to help you the most is being able to spend time in the text and just get used to what you're seeing and know where to look to make sure, or to check or to find out what something means. In other words, have your grammar close by for a period of time. But if there's one thing that is the most critical of all the things you want to get, if you don't get anything else, is vocabulary. Because without vocabulary, you're toast. So you got to be wearing out those vocabulary cards. That's just the only
So
method.
Would you recommend spending a decent amount of time in the text, just run through it with a lexicon, trying to get a feel for it, or is that something that?
Well, I would recommend you spending time in your workbook at this point. If you try to spend time in the biblical text, it's probably just going to frustrate you because you haven't even had verbs yet. Now, you will have pretty soon, and after tonight, you're going to know better how to use the lexicon. So, in a few weeks, by the time we get to the second term of this, then you're pretty much you can get into the text and make some sense of it by yourself, I would say. But at this point, that workbook is the thing that's going to kind of work things in for you. And so if you're not spending time, I'm not even going to ask. because I'm afraid of the answer I might get. But if you're not spending time in the workbook, then that'll help you. Just
for me this week, it was just the sheer volume because we had the normal 40 vocabulary words, but then all of the charts. I mean, that's like another 10 vocabulary words right there, really.
Yeah.
And then the chart from chapter 8 was another 10 vocabulary words.
Yeah. Well,
It was more like about double the vocabulary.
Yeah, that's right. It's bumping up. Now we're only going to do one chapter next week, and so that'll help. But again, you got to get that vocabulary down. And the second thing that you have to have down is the endings, the forms that we're memorizing. So this would be a second priority. And really, if you don't have the endings down, the vocabulary doesn't do you too much good. So, vocabulary and endings, are two things you got to get down. Now, I would rather have you spend the time working through the workbook by far than really trying to retain every detail rule of the grammar. Because if you're doing that, you're just trying to do this by raw brain power, right? Which you need some raw brain power to do this. I mean, that's how you're going to learn vocabulary, raw brain power, basically. That's how you're going to learn the endings, pretty much, by raw brain power. But a lot of the other stuff, I think, and I may be technically wrong here, but it doesn't really matter. I think you can rely on your innate language ability that we talked about. If you're seeing things, getting used to things, and you get a feel for, you might not be able to, cite a paradigm or see it on the page of the grammar or whatever, but you just think, oh, that looks like a plural with a suffix on it, or something like that, and it fits the context. And again, context helps you a lot too, right? So I would much rather see you working through the workbook because the workbook is giving you what you should be able to deal with by now. So if you just open it up to Judges, you don't know what you're going to get, right? But if you're opening up to the workbook, that should be giving you stuff you can deal with, and that's giving you practice in at least a text. And so, that's how these things are going to all kind of work together for you. So you just have to have the vocabulary down. I think I'm going to get my vocabulary cards out because there's a lot of vocabulary in this grammar. Not a lot, I guess, but a significant amount of vocabulary in this grammar that I'm not terribly familiar with because she's choosing words that are different from the grammar that I had. And even if I went back to the grammar I had, I'm sure there are lots of those words I don't even remember. Different than you might see in the Bible and those sorts of things. So it's a new book, new vocabulary list. Now granted, memorizing these lists is probably going to be a tenth as hard for me as it is for you because I already know a lot of them, right? And so I only have a few new ones. But I think I'm going to get my vocabulary cards out. I'm going to Puyallup to help my friend in the sportsman show up there. And I think I'm going to sit in that booth for now and then and just start going over my Hebrew cards here with this stuff. And just because, that's the way to do it. I mean, it's just not very easy to do it just looking in the book and memorizing the vocabulary. Those cards are just so much more effective.
On the workbook, I can't find the answers. And that's been kind of a struggle. In other words, it's nice to do the workbook because it's got translating passages and things. But it also doesn't find all the rules that you're talking about. And so I don't know which. There's nothing. There's no way to check it right now. I haven't figured it out. Let's figure out a way to check it.
It's supposed to be on the CD.
I didn't see it on.
I think according to the back of the book, it says it's on CD, but no one's ever seen the CD.
I've seen it on there. I've got a copy of it.
Okay, I might have to let the Seminary just got to pull it out, right? Because that's not one of the.
Did you get the CD?
I do.
I've got it.
Does it work? Does it talk? No.
It doesn't talk. It doesn't talk.
You got full. You got
Does it have that vocabulary program that sorts them for you by chapter and sorts them by whether you're getting them right or not, that kind of thing?
Yeah, you can, it'll mix them up, and I would take vocabulary, chapters 1 through 9, and then it'll just take you through when you can automatically stop and guess what it is and then they tell you.
Oh, good.
It doesn't grade you, but it takes you through the exam.
Oh, good. Well, that's very useful.
No, I have a question, and again, I mentioned work this week to provide a lot of time, but on the phenomenal subject, I'm not sure it's through all the different rules of phenomenal, what happens about them. How important is it to remember those rules in detail, or how is it? Again, I know we're going for recognition. I guess I'm not sure. Is it something that we're going to recognize easily just by having that chart memorized and realizing, okay, the Falcon's not quite right. It looks like that's ending, or is it we really need to have those memories? Changes down pat in chapter 9.
If you the more of that stuff you have, I'm not saying it's going to help you, but I'm saying if you really know vocabulary, and if you know this down, and you can relax a little bit, be a little familiar with, you've read through it, you're a little familiar with this kind of stuff that happens, and that's the thing. When you're doing the Hebrew for a while, you're familiar with the kind of stuff that happens. Vowels. Accents change and vowels reduce and things drop out and vowels, lengthen and, stuff like that. You get a feel for what's happening. Then you can make very good guesses. And, for a while you're going to probably be at the point of making very good guesses at best. So, it's just, have you had Greek yet? Yeah, you just have to take a little bit different approach to it than the approach that you take to Greek, because Greek is just pretty compared to Hebrew, Greek is pretty cut and dried. You memorize gobs and gobs of paradigms. You can look at it. You can say, I know that's parsed in that way, or whatever, and you can give the paradigm for it, and bam, there it is, and you just you have all the stuff in your head, and you can just lay it on the table, and just be almost usually 100% confident in what you're talking about. I suppose that's possible with Hebrew, but there's so many tiny little details in terms of what vowel points do and all that kind of stuff that you kind of have to a little bit feel your way through it. And that's kind of the nature of the Hebrew language compared to the nature of Greek anyway. Greek is, to me, is more, intellectually cut and dried, even in the way it expresses itself. Whereas Hebrew is more of a feeling language. It's more like English. So you kind of have to get that relaxation thing going. That looks pretty familiar to me. I don't know exactly what's happening, but it's pretty clear to me what that is. So you've got to really. But if you don't have the vocabulary down, you don't have a real solid starting place at that point, and then you're just out in the ether someplace, not anchored. So if you have the anchor of the vocabulary, anchor of the endings, then that's going to help you a lot. You're going to have to go through. Remember we said. That vocabulary, these endings, all this kind of stuff, just because you could write them down on a quiz or not, doesn't mean that you got them forever now, right? So it's a matter of just, reviewing a little bit all the time. And it really doesn't have to take that much time. If I were you, I'd make cards, some kinds of cards, 3x5 cards or kind of small or whatever, of endings. Because, you can review a lot of endings in 5 minutes. And that's where these cards are critical. You can review a lot of vocabulary in 5 minutes. You can be sitting someplace. You can be anywhere. And if you've got 5 minutes, you can do a lot of vocabulary. If you spent 10 minutes a day on vocabulary, I bet that'd just about be enough. If you really did that. If you spent 10 minutes twice a day, you'd probably be, the vocabulary king or queen. It just doesn't take a ton of time to do that, I don't think. Maybe the initial learning of the word takes a little bit longer than that. But in terms of a review, 5 or 10 minutes a couple times a day, if you could do that, just, you'd be slaughtering vocabulary. Same thing with the endings, really. If you had 5 or 10 minutes twice a day to go over the endings, the thing that will not work for you and will kill you is if you only study Hebrew on Monday. You can't do it. And I know how hard it is because I ended up doing that myself. But I'm starting from a different place. I can get ready for this class just studying on Monday. I'd be a lot better off if I didn't. But you will not survive it if Monday's the only day you study Hebrew. It just will not work. So it's just a daily thing. Take Saturday off. Take the Sabbath off. Yeah.
We have Hebrew and Greek tutorials at the office that can be purchased, and they're very good.
Good.
But the two of them come together and they're about $50.
On computer?
Yeah, it's a disc that you put on the computer, and it does a lot of things.
Cool. Is that rolling? The tape? Good. All right. So on the CD, there's a PDF document that has the answer key for the workbook. All right. Very good. In the grammar, page 97. Page 97 in the grammar, the Hebrew construct chain. The Hebrew construct chain is something like the genitive case. Is that on or off? Shop? Oh, it's on. Okay, good. So the Hebrew construct chain is something like the genitive case. Basically, the word of will help you in terms of translating it and understanding it. The Hebrew construct chain is two or more nouns that come one after the other. And in the Hebrew construct chain, no word can come between these nouns in this chain. Right? And the first word of the chain will be a noun in the construct form. And the last word will be a noun in the absolute form. The absolute form is the form that we've seen, and the forms that we've learned, the lexical form. If there's more than two, then the last one will be in the absolute form, and the first words will be in the construct form. And so you see on the top of page 97 the examples. Kol is voice, and ish is man, and ha is the definite article, right? So kol here is in the construct. Now it's the same form as the absolute, and a lot of times, especially in the masculine singular, the construct and the absolute form will be the same. But if you have two nouns together, you're going to have to do something with it. A voice to man doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? So you know then it's in the construct form, it's a construct chain. So if you see kol ha-ish, that's going to be the voice of the man. Now why is it the voice? Because the whole construct chain is either definite or indefinite. So the word in the absolute, if it's definite, the whole construct chain is definite. If the word in the absolute is indefinite, then the whole construct chain is indefinite. Melech haaretz, the king of the land. Eved hamelech is the servant of the king. Now you could have Melech Aretz, and you'd have a king of a land. Right? All right. So you can see down at the bottom of page 97 the description of the grammar of the Hebrew construct chain. The first noun, Eved, is the construct noun. Hamelech is the absolute noun. Now, in this case, Eved doesn't change its form, and that's typical of Sagolit nouns, actually. In the masculine singular, Eved doesn't change its form from the absolute to the construct. Some nouns will do that. I guess you turn the page. All right. We talk about definiteness and indefiniteness, and you see examples of that. Kol ish, a voice of a man. Kol ha-ish, the voice of the man, which we saw. You can see that right down below there.
So if we're reading a passage of Scripture, and we're reading a construct chain, you would never find ha, kol, Haish
Right.
would just be called Haish.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, a proper name is also definite. So, Avi, Avraham, is the father of Abraham. Now, careful. What's the vocabulary word for father? Av. All right. Well, now we have Avi, Avraham. We have a reduction of the vowel under the aleph, and we have an E ending. That E ending is because it's construct. Okay, now be careful, that's not a first common singular ending. How are you going to know the difference? Because the first common singular ending is not going to cause a reduction of the vowel.
Could also be read like my father, points are opposite, right?
Hmm?
You say my father.
No, and that's because the vowel point reduced, so that's not a first common singular ending. See? So the form is not exactly the same. The only difference is that vowel point there. Now that's another one of those things you could struggle with and cry over because there's a little detail. Well, relax, let it sink in. Don't worry about it. Don't fret about it. All right. I'm not going to tell you, don't try to know it, but there are going to be a million of these details that are going to be just out there someplace, and someday if you're a world expert in Hebrew, you might have them all under your belt. But there's no point in losing sleep over all these little details right now. Right? Context, when you get into a text, context is going to be so huge in helping you and bringing these things back to memory. And again, this is why if you study together, it helps you. Because if you're in a group of 2 or 3 people, maybe there's a chance of one person remembering, oh, that vowel reduced. And that's not a first common singular ending. All right? Now, again, you're not on the translation committee yet anyway, so if you forget that, no one's going to be going to hell because of it. So that is the father of Abraham. Why? Because Avraham is a definite noun because it's a proper noun. See? So that whole construct chain is going to be definite. It's just logical. How could you have a father of Abraham? If it's something of Abraham, it's definite. How could you have you could have a sheep of Abraham, but if it's a sheep of Abraham, it's the sheep of Abraham. Well, as soon as you put a possessive on it, as soon as you make it, put a possessive idea with it, then the sheep is not just a sheep, but it's Abraham's sheep. And now Abraham's sheep becomes definite, doesn't it? Ebed Shamuel, a servant of Samuel. Beit Melchi. Now, Melchi does have the first common singular suffix on it. The house of my king. But look what happened to Beit. Words that have the diphthong I in them, like bayit and ayin. See how the vowel points change for the construct form there? It's not bayit anymore, it's Beit. And that's why the name of the town is Beit Lechem. Bayit, house, Lechem, bread. But it's not Bayit Lechem because it's a construct change, right? House of bread. Beit Lechem, Bethlehem. Right? See, it's amazing what you learn when you learn the language, isn't it? So Beit would be the construct form of Bayit. Sefer, and that's the same, isn't it? That didn't change. Sefer, Avihu, the book of his father. I remember Av does some strange things when you put a suffix on it sometimes. So Avihu, what is who?
He.
Well, who is he? But here, this is an alternate form. This is an alternate form. And again, you kind of have to relax a little bit. Look on page 93. Okay. Now, we're actually going to see this in the biblical text we're going to look at tonight, so this is good that just came on. See this chart on page 93? Look at the type 1 alternate, third masculine singular. What is it? Who. Right? So I could have Avio, possibly, but I have avihu. Now, avihu flows off the tongue more easily than avio, doesn't it? So it sounds better, it says better. So it uses an alternate. All right. You can have more than two nouns in a construct change. The servant of the brother of the king. And he kind of goes crazy at the bottom. All of the family, of the house, of the father, of his mother. But, you might have that. Coal. Now, look at coal. What's the vocabulary? The vocabulary, I'm looking almost toward the bottom of page 99 in paragraph 3, right? The last example. And he gives you a note here. Well, look at footnote 1. The form coal, that's a comet skatooth there, right? So I'm pronouncing it coal, is the construct of coal. All, each, every. So coal is the absolute form, and coal with a comet skatooth is the construct form. So, kol mishpachat. What is mishpacha? Family. But mishpachat, construct. So all the family, and since that's in the construct, it is all the family of Beit, the house of Avi, the father, but that's in the construct, the father of Emo. Finally, here's my absolute noun, right? His mother. So all the family of the house of the father of his mother. In fact, I guess that comes from Judges 9:1, so I guess that's kind of a string as possible, isn't it?
Why do you get I forget what you call it, the McCabe? Why do you get that between Bayit and Avi?
Well, when you have such a long construct chain, it just helps you. Now, we're going to see in a moment that you can have a construct change with the McCabe or not. You can choose to put it in there if you want.
So the McCabe is going to make that. It's going to give that whole chain only one accent still?
Right.
Is that right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How can you tell if that's a comet tattoo without just knowing it?
Because it's in a closed unaccented syllable.
The accent's here because of the McCabe.
By definition, say words that are connected by a McCabe or words in construct, well, that's not true. Words connected by a McCabe are one unit for accenting, one accentual unit. So there's typically only one accent in words. If you have two words connected by a McCabe, there's only one accent. Accentually, they do. Yeah. It's for pronunciation and for accent, they become one word. So by definition, then coal in a construct form is not accented. And now, it's in a closed unaccented syllable. So the comet is common for two. When you have coal by itself with a colon, it's by itself, so it has to have an accent. And so now it's not in a closed unaccented syllable. So if it had the comets, it would be a regular comet. But since we want to pronounce it coal, it has the whole. I get to do it the way they want to. But that's a great question. But since there is a comet there, you know it has to be a comet skatooth because it's in a closed unaccented syllable. Always it will be by definition in that word though, because it will never have an accent with a McCabe. All right. So right underneath it, number 4 says construct change linked with a McCabe. The nouns of the construct chain are sometimes joined by McCabe. There you go. So you don't have to, but you can. And when you do, you only have one accent for both the words. All right. Construct change with adjectives. When you have a construct change, remember, construct chain, nothing can come between the nouns that are in construct. Okay? So if you have an adjective, it has to come after, basically. Suppose it could come before, but that wouldn't be the normal place of an adjective, would it? So the adjective is going to have to come after. So if you have davar, hamalka, hatov, all right. Well, davar. Now something's happened there, right? Because normally you can see right above that in that paragraph, you can see the normal form of davar. The vowels have reduced. Why? Because it's a construct form. Okay. So the comma's reduced to a patak under the bay, and the comma's reduced to a shiva under the dollar. Now there are rules for that, and they're in this chapter. And if you want to really commit those to memory, you're going to need 15 minutes twice a day. Yes, but to me, if I just realize the vowels have reduced, I got a couple nouns together, and the first one, the vowels reduced, probably a construct form. All right. Now, ha-mal-ka, that's the queen, because Melech is king. If I make it feminine, it's queen, and I can stick a definite article on it, so that's the king. The queen. So now the whole construct form is definite, because the absolute noun has a definite article. So, the word of the queen. Now I have ha-to. Now, ha-to, agreeing with davar in gender and definiteness, number. All right. Now, tov is the masculine form, right? You with me on that? Ha-malka is a feminine word. All right. So tov can't modify queen. Right? Tov is going to modify davar, because that's a masculine word. You with me on that? So it is the good word of the queen. If good were in the feminine form, then it would be the word of the good queen. See? Now, I know your mind will immediately race to a time when they're all the same gender. Right. Then it's ambiguous. Then context has to tell you whether it is the good word of the king or the word of the good king. And is there a difference? Yes, but not that much difference, right? Whether you have a good word from the king or a word from the good king.
But if you were trying to write it so you wanted to be specific, is there a special way they would specify?
Not that I know of. Not that I can think of. Tova. All right, so that's how you work with adjectives. Remember definiteness, remember adjectives. And he gives you some examples of ambiguous constructions. And when you just have the construct chain in an adjective, it is ambiguous. You can't tell. But if you had a context, then you can make a decision how to translate it. But davar hamelech hatov, that's the good word of the king or the word of the good king. Just like we said. Divrei ha-malakim ha-tovim. Now, divrei, what's happened there? Divrei. That sereyod is a plural, masculine plural construct ending. So we're going to need to know that, right? So that's words, and that's construct, and then the kings. So now I've got the words of the kings, and then I have ha-tovim. Now that can modify either one, right? So I can either have the good words of the kings or the words of the good kings. The broader context, probably broader than the sentence, will indicate how that should be translated.
Do you come across a lot of these in the text, or is most of the time there's a differentiation either number or gender? Is this going to be a common occurrence?
It's possible. I mean, I can't really answer that question because I don't have the Old Testament grammar to hand in that way. But if you have the computer program I believe I could search for that and find out how often that happens. But I've never done that search. Yeah, I mean, those are good questions, but if you had the answers to that, it would probably be exegetically significant to have them, but you'd really have to use a computer or have somebody really, really, really massively experienced in reading Hebrew Bible, and I can't claim that. But yeah, that's a fine question. It's just one of those kind of computer answers. Do you have a computer search for Hebrew on your computer, did you say?
Search for it.
You don't have a search program that you can search Hebrew?
No, I just loaded that CD on that.
Yeah, for a Mac, Accordance is awesome. I'll have to bring my computer sometime. Huh? It's called Accordance from Grandford. Yeah, that's pretty fabulous.
So since Melech is masculine, you would never have Ha-Melech? Or you could have Ha-Melech?
Ha-Melech? What do you mean?
The king.
Yeah. You can have the king, sure. We have it right there. Davar Hamelech Hatov. First example on the bottom of page 100.
Okay, I don't know.
That, being masculine or not has nothing to do with whether it can have an article. It's just that the noun in the construct's not going to have the article. The absolute noun is going to have the article.
Only if it's absolute. Is that a rule? Only if it's an absolute noun?
Well, it can have the article without being an well, it can have the article, yeah, only if it's an absolute noun, but it can be used outside of a construct chain and have the article.
Go back to the word, the key word, the queen, the adjective and masculine singular, let's say no modifies, total modifies are.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain that to me? Because I'm not sure how you, I mean, there's nothing, because
If you want to say the good queen, you'd have to say ha-tova. Make it feminine. Remember my endings, blank, ot.
because it's an adjective, you can put that's it. Okay.
Yeah, an adjective is going to be able to come in either singular, plural, or masculine or feminine. Pardon?
That's to match the noun in number and gender and
Definiteness. If it's an attributive adjective, it will not match the noun in definiteness if it's in predicate position. So if I'm trying to say the queen is good, now I would say something like ha malka tova. Now the queen has a definite article, tova does not, so they don't match in definiteness. So I know that's predicate position, so that will be the queen is good instead of the good queen.
But you wouldn't have that in this situation. You would never, I can't imagine a situation where you have the good word of the queen the word of the queen would make.
Well,
you can say the word that, the queen that is good, because that's not predicate, is it?
Well, logically, I suppose you could say the word of the queen is good. I'm not sure Hebrew does that, but it would be logical for it to do that. You see what I mean? Now, you're still not clear on something I'm sensing, Tim.
I'll figure it out.
What is it?
I'll sort it. It's probably way off the wall.
That's all right.
Probably more of a question for conversation.
Yeah, okay.
If you're listening to Hebrew, how would you distinguish between all of us, and Cole boys?
Well, you might be able to make a distinction between a cough and a kof. But that's a little bit like the difference between a and fod. Yeah, exactly. But again, context.
It wouldn't fit in context. I suppose it could. All of the voice of the king was loud. It could just happen to spell.
I mean, there got to be a lot of instances like that in English, where there are homonyms, like meat. Now, I'm not sure that coal and coal are homonyms because there might technically be a difference in the way they're pronounced, but for our purposes, they're homonyms because they're going to sound alike for us, and I suspect they probably would for Hebrew speakers too. I'm not sure of that. That'd be a great thing to ask your, speaking Hebrew teacher. And,
he'll say, "Come back next semester."
Yeah. But how do you know whether you're meaning meat as in something you barbecue, or meat as in you meat a person, or just context. And part of it's getting used to the patterns of a language. A language doesn't do all the things that are logically possible for it to do. And so when you get to know, it's really hard to say that a language doesn't do this, because that would mean a very huge, broad experience in the language. You'd almost have to be a native speaker of the language to say that, the language doesn't do this. It's much easier to say, yeah, a language does do this. Here's how this does work. You can do this. All right. All right. Demonstrative adjectives shouldn't be too much problem. A shet, and these changes. Pick up on the fact that ish and isha and bain and bat, man and woman and son and daughter and av, father, do weird things. Okay, we've already seen they do weird things. They have, the masculine words have feminine-looking endings and stuff like that, right? So pick up on the fact that those very common words do weird things. So, a shet, that is wife of. Now, notice the tav there, right? Isha with the feminine ending without the dot in it, right? Isha for the construct form replaces the hey with a tav. Okay, vowels change too. So, a shet becomes the construct form of isha for woman or wife. And now we have ha-ish, that's definite. So the woman of the man, the wife of the man, ha-zeh. Now, zeh means this, but now I put a definite article on it, so it matches in definiteness. So it's attributive, right? I don't want to say the wife of the man is this. I want to say this is the wife of the man. Well, I don't even want to say that. I'm sorry, I'm wrong again. The wife of the man, the wife of this man is what I want to say. I'm not trying to. I don't have a whole sentence here. I just have a phrase, right? The wife of this man. Now I can throw some more stuff in here. Eshet, ha-ish, ha-tov, ha-zeh. So, the wife of this good man. Divrei. Now, look. Yeah.
Could you have said, put the tov prior, in front of
I think this would be a typical pattern: the adjective first, and then the demonstrative, or the regular adjective first, and the demonstrative after that. Now, divrei, pick up on the fact that sereyod is the construct form of the masculine plural im. Instead of im, davarim, right? We're getting divrei here. So, divrei, hanavi, ha-ela. Right? So, divrei is words. Ha-navi. Navi is prophet. That's singular with a definite article. So, the words of the prophet. Now, ha-ele. Ela is the plural form in a sense of zeh, right? So these. Now, prophet singular. So it's not these prophet. That doesn't match, right? So it's got to be these words of the prophet. Now, why don't you have to have the with words? Because these makes it definite. See? So, these words of the prophet.
Repeat what you just said. You didn't need the
in English, we're not going to have the definite article in front of words because these makes it definite already. I wouldn't say these the words. That doesn't work.
But it's already definite because it's part of the construct chain.
In Hebrew, it's already definite because it's part of a construct chain.
Okay, but you're saying if it was outside the construct chain, you still wouldn't need it because these is definite.
Well, I'm saying in English.
Oh,
see?
no.
Even though divrei is definite in this construct chain, it doesn't have the definite article in Hebrew. It wouldn't because it's a construct noun.
Right.
Okay. For a different reason, but similarly in English, words, I don't put the definite article with that because I have these with it. And these already makes words definite. So I would never say in English, these the words. I would say these words. See? Now, how do I say these words in Hebrew? Whether it has an article or not, we're not saying. Outside the construct chain. See what I mean? Now, look at the next one down, and you can see the example that we alluded to. Now, divrei, words, hanavi, the prophet, hazeh. Hazeh is singular. So hazeh can't go with words. So this is the words of this prophet. See how you just have to match it up? Number, gender. Pay attention to number and gender and see what matches. That's very similar to what we did in Greek, remember? Greek words are matching by gender, number, and case. Well, we don't have case here, but we're matching by gender, number, and definiteness. Or not matching indefiniteness, which means something else, right? All right? You're not tensing on me, are you? All right. Huh? Because if you...
Well, I only haven't had Greek.
No. Who has had Greek? Just Cyrus? See, you'll know half of Greek by the time you get out of here. There is a hole through which all this stuff has to go through to get to your mind. When you tense, it makes that hole really small. So you can't... Yeah, you can't tense. You have to stay loose.
I know that's one of the things that really helped me in Greek, though. And it's helping me now in Hebrew, too. The understanding of they have to match up. And if they do match up, that probably means something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very good. So the matching thing. All right. Now number 3 on that page 101, you can have adjectives in the construct state. So you have yafat, mar'eh, beautiful of appearance. Chacham, and notice the reduced vowel, right? That's not the vocabulary form of that, is it? Right? The vowel has reduced. So see why I'm saying it's so important to know vocabulary? See, if you know your vocabulary, you'll know, okay, something's going on here. And you'll look around the context and go, okay, well, what's going on? Well, there's a makef there. It's not vocabulary, the vowel's reduced, and I have a makef. That becomes a no-brainer, construct form. Now, do I have to memorize all the rules for the vowel reduction? No. Do I have to be able to anticipate what it's going to be? If I'm writing it or speaking it, but I'm not, so I don't have to know all of that. Yeah.
I wouldn't look at whatever they did to the word davar here and instantly go, oh yeah, that's word, they just changed it around. All of the vowels are different. Is there a way to look at that and say, yes, that used to be davar, instead of saying, oh, that's some weird vocabulary word we haven't had yet?
Yes, because you're going to learn the construct endings. And that will help you with that. You're going to learn the construct endings, and you're going to know, you do know, that the vowels reduce.
A question linked to
And
that.
so you're looking at, again, you still have the same consonants. So davar is not that difficult. If you know the endings, you know that Sarah Yod's a construct ending. And so, now, is it possible that...
Probably not too many words to have the same exact consonant.
Right.
So if you recognize a consonant, you can, if you assume first it's the words you know.
That's right.
I mean, the worst case is you look it up in the lexicon.
Yeah, well, if what you know makes sense, it's almost certainly what it is. Right? Now, is it possible that it's not? Yeah, but that's highly unlikely. And you're right. How many words are going to start with the same 3 consonants as?
Well, we just had one in our vocabulary this week. I noticed there were 2 words right above each other that have exactly the same consonants.
Right. That's right. Right, exactly. Yep. And that's possible, of course, because it happened, but it's still fairly rare. That's fairly rare. That's why it's difficult to get to the point in Hebrew where you can look at the page of the text with nothing else and be so confident in what you see without any help from a lexicon or anything else that you start changing doctrine. But it's nice to be able to read the text and have an idea what it says. Now, if you're going to get real serious and you're going to this is going to be a major point in your sermon or something like that, you check yourself in the lexicon and make sure you have it right. We're going to do some work in BDB in the lexicon tonight, and you'll see. You'll probably be able to find that form in the lexicon, that exact form. It's not going to be the lexical entry. You're not going to find div re as a lexical entry, more than likely. But if you look up davar, somewhere in that entry you're going to be able to see that form probably. If it doesn't just list a bunch of forms and tell you CS construct or plural with the two, you know what I mean? So, if you're realistically, unless you're going to, go on the international lecture circuit because of your knowledge of Hebrew kind of thing, right? Realistically, if you're making big points in your sermon because, on that verse, you're probably going to just check yourself to make sure you parse that verb right, And the cool thing about a computer program, although computer programs get it wrong too, is computer program, you put the cursor on that and it parses it, and that's cool, right? But you need to be able to read the language and have the knowledge of it, or else the computer program really doesn't do you any good. So, so it's a Hifil imperfect. What does that tell you? Nothing. You don't have some experience in the language, right? So in a sense, if beginning Hebrew gets to the point where you can even understand what the computer program is telling you, you've gone a long ways, right? But you go, why do we need to do this? We've got the computer program. Well, you can't even understand the computer program, so there you go. That's why.
I've seen that just on vocabulary cards. Some of them on the back, it's like, what is all that other stuff? It's got other stuff on there, but you don't know what it is yet.
Yeah. Well, if you take beginning Hebrew and you understand that, you can pretty much look at virtually any critical commentary now in an Old Testament book and understand what they're saying to some extent, right? You can take a critical commentary before you take Hebrew. That's a niffle. So what? That's in the construct form. Oh, that's exciting. That sounds like a preaching point. What does that mean? Well, now you know what that means. I think maybe my answer is it will surprise you when you get in the real text that it'll be easier than you think it is to pick that up with some time looking at stuff.
What's she saying? What if you had the sentence, "These cows on this morning"? Which vowels would reduce in
Well, I know that these would be the plural form, and this would be the singular form. And if cows is plural, then these goes with cows, and this goes with morning.
So those the vowels of cows of are would reduce.
Well, you didn't give me a construct form. These cows of this farmer. These cows of this farmer.
Okay. Well, we need morning in there because we have words with the same consonant. That would be my question.
Well, it works because cow and morning are different enough words. Now, if cow and sheep were the same, then you'd have trouble. Because now you're looking at, is this the farmer's cow or the farmer's sheep? What's going on?
For context, whether the cows were plural or morning, they could be plural. So
I mean, somebody's not gonna leave early in the cow.
True.
Or go milk a morning.
So just context.
I mean, it's just I mean, that's why the word for cow and sheep don't look alike, because it would never work.
Right.
Go slaughter hey, you killed the cow. We just found a little sheep here. That wouldn't work very well, right? So I guess the greatest confidence booster is that the language has actually worked for thousands of years, so that helps us relax. It does work. Yeah, but great questions, and again, must convince you to relax. All right. Now, just to increase the joy, there's more things we can do, and that is that we can use construct nouns with inseparable prepositions. Now, you're not going to put a definite article on a noun in the construct form. If you have cow of a farmer. Cow would be in the construct. You're not going to put a definite article on cow. And you're not going to put any words between cow and farmer. That would break the chain. But what you can do is you can put an inseparable preposition or any preposition before the construct noun. But if it's an inseparable preposition, it's stuck right to the construct noun, right? You can do that. So you can say, to the cow of the farmer, if I put a lamed on the front of cow.
Did you say you put a llama?
Lamed.
And would you put a hay in front of the farmer?
Hay in front of the farmer. Yeah, that's how he coaxes the cow. Actually, if it's a llama, it has to be a Dalai Lama. Because of this religious thing we're talking about. Anyway.
I'm curious, I mean, would you put a definite in front of the farmer? If you're put a llama for 2 in front of a cow.
Well, you could or could not. I mean, you may.
What is the phrase we're looking at? I'm getting.
You can either have to the cow of the farmer, or you can have to a cow of a farmer. Or in other words, to a farmer's cow.
But you wouldn't put in a construct form an inseparable preposition with a definite article.
Right. An inseparable preposition can go by itself, but you're never going to have it combined with a definite article like you have in other words. If we were speaking it or writing it, these things would be greater issues. The great thing is you're going to see it in the text. And when you see it in the text, can you deal with it? Right? If you see a noun in the construct with a preposition stuck to it, you're going to deal with it just like you do every other noun. All right? And if you see cow and farmer together, you might struggle a little bit. Let's see. Never give hay to cow the farmer. Never give hay to cow the farmer? Well, maybe it'll hit you that it might be a construct and to the cow of the farmer. Oh, okay. And you see those a few times, like in the workbooks. You see those a few times, and it's not that hard for your brain to run in that direction when you see that. So, if you could look at, for example, buy it in the construct goes to bait, right? And then when you put the letter bait for the preposition on the front of the word bait, see it right there, third line down, you get bavait. Now, we lost our dogish in the bait of buy it or bait, right? Why did we lose our dogish? Well, it's a begad kafat letter, and it's not going to have a dogish lane if it's preceded by a vowel. Only if it's preceded by a consonant, begins the word. Well, you have a vocal shava, so it knocks the dogish lane out of that initial bait from bayit, or bait, the construct form. You see that? Again, that's not something I have to lose sleep over because somebody else wrote that for me. I just have to read it and deal with it. Right? I mean, if I had to remember all this stuff to write, I'd be driven crazy, I suppose. Now, Tim, he's trying to speak it, so he will be crazy. However, you're trying to speak it. How are they teaching you? Probably.
Really just to run them together.
All right, but they're teaching you by sound, right? You're listening, right?
And I can't tell the difference.
You're hearing stuff.
I couldn't tell the difference between babayit and babayit. I suppose if someone spoke Hebrew all their life, they would be able to.
What, babayit and babayit? Babayit?
I mean, it's so subtle.
It is subtle, and those sounds linguistically, the way you're making them with your mouth and all that, ba and va are very close. That's why a bait gets to have the sounds ba and va, because they are very close sounds together. That's why a pay gets to have p or f, because those are very close sounds. Right? That's why the same letter has those two sounds. All right? Now, we get to spelling of nouns in the construct state. In many instances, the singular construct noun and its lexical form are identical in spelling. Examples include Seuss, horse, or horse of. So Seuss is not going to change in the absolute or the construct form. It's the same form. Coal, voice, same thing. Melic, same thing. And that's the Sigolite, vowels. The Sigolite nouns typically do not change from the absolute to the construct state. So
when you're talking about Sigolite, are you talking about one where the Sigol is always in that first,
or both?
It's both,
Yeah, but Evid, same thing. Many times too, but
Sigolite nouns, are you talking about ones that have Sigols all the way through, or are you talking about just it's at least?
Well, at least the ones that have two Sigols, or Sigolim, or whatever the case is. At least in the examples that we've seen. All right. Most construct nouns, however, are spelled differently than their lexical form. These changes are occasioned by the fact that a construct noun surrenders its primary accent. As such, only the absolute noun has the primary accent, and the entire construct chain is pronounced as though it were a single word. All right. So, whether or not you have the McCafe, you have a single accentual unit. The changes in spelling that occur with nouns in the construct state are similar to those changes that a noun undergoes when taking a pronominal suffix. Although a standard lexicon will provide the construct form for most nouns, a few rules will enable you to identify most of the changes on your own. So vowel reduction, we talked about that. All right. What does vowel reduction mean? Well, look at mishpat. Mishpat, the vowel reduction is a comets to a patak. Now, comets is a long vowel, isn't it? Patak is a short vowel. So remember, comets and sere and hirik are the three long changeable vowels. Okay, that's why we wanted to know that. All right. So comets goes to patak, so there's a vowel reduction. Midbar, wilderness. Now, notice the bait there has the dogish in it. Why? Because we have a silent shiva before it. See? Midbar, wilderness. And see how the comets reduces to a patak there as well. And then malak, angel. Again, you have the same thing. All right. Now, comets and sometimes sere change to patak in a final closed syllable. Comets or sere change the vocal shiva in an open, unaccented syllable. I think you'd go nuts trying to memorize all that stuff. Right? If you want to check yourself on a word or something like that, go back to the grammar. But just remember, vowels reduce. You'll get to know how vowels reduce. Long vowels reduce to short vowels. Vowels can reduce to shiva. And there you go. Right? So if you remember vowels reduce, that's what you need to know. All right. Look at the word devar. See how devar, the second comets reduces to a patak, and the first comet reduces to a shiva. Well, you know what? I don't care about those rules and why it did that. I see vowel reduction. I'm going to know in the context that's probably a construct. I'm good to go. Right? But I got to know my vocabulary very well. Levav, heart, goes to levav, etc. The monosyllabic nouns kol and bane occur more frequently. Bane goes to ben, and kol goes to call. Now remember, kamet skatuf is short. I think I said that wrong earlier. You have sere, comets, and holam are your long changeable vowels. Right? Yod goes to yod. But again, in all these cases, there's vowel reduction, right? Now, we're talking about the lexical form too, right? Where there's not a change of ending. You get outside the lexical form, and there's going to be a change of ending, which we'll talk about. All right? The absolute Elohim goes to Elohe. Now, I have a difference in ending there, don't I? Right? Remember I told you, instead of the eem ending, when it's construct, you get the tsere yod, a ending. See? Banim goes to bane. There I have that ending, the same tsere yod ending, and reduction. So sons. And you can see so forth. Okay, that's why words is divrei, because I get that tsere yod kind of ending.
Can I ask you a quick question about reduction? I understand the long to reduce to the short vowels. It's like when you've got the hatef vowels, you have reduced vowels. Isn't that what they're called? The other name? Called reduced or hatef. What is that? So the long is reduced to short. Is it just short then reduced to this hatef vowel? I don't understand why they're called reduced vowels.
Which ones? Well, you go from long to short to shavah. But a guttural can't take a shavah under it. So, for example, you have an olive, like in this, if you have Elohim, so Elohim starts off with a reduced segol. Well, olive can't take a shavah, so it's going to have a reduced vowel.
Okay. I never understood why that exists. So do you only see those under guttural?
I think so.
I mean, always.
Yeah.
I understand.
But, for example, if Elohim were spelled originally with a segol and not a reduced one, and then you come over to the construct, if you're going to reduce the segol, you've got to reduce it to a katef segol, because olive can't take just a shavah under it. So that's just kind of another option for reducing a vowel. Well, for example, in the word einayim. See that the ayin and the tsere. Do you think the name of the letter ayin and the word for I are related? That tsere right there, it doesn't reduce in the construct, right? But if it were to reduce, you'd have to have a katef tsere, because the ayin couldn't take a shavah. Although, all right. Now, feminine singular nouns with the ending, the kametz he ending, change to the patak, so that kametz is reduced, and instead of a hey, you get a tav. So Torah becomes Torat. Malkah becomes Malkat, and Shana becomes Shanat. It becomes fairly easy if you have something other than the lexical form, because you're going to have a tsere yod instead of a hirik yod, mame, for masculine plural ending. You're going to have a tav instead of a hey, and a reduced vowel. So instead of a kametz, you get a patak. But the real thing you're going to be seeing, smacking you in the face, is the tav instead of the hey. So, I know the word Torah. Or am I saying Torat? Construct. Right? Plural, feminine nouns ending in ot. What's going to happen? So I have mom lakot goes to mom lakot with a reduction in the vowel. So the ot is not going to change. The ot ending isn't going to change, but again, I'm back to reduction of the vowel. So the plural of the masculine and the singular of the feminine gets a different ending. This way, the singular of the masculine and the plural of the feminine keeps the same ending and reduces the vowels. All right, look at number 5. Certain singular monosyllabic nouns add hirik yod to their stem in the construct state. You will recall that this also occurs when the same nouns take pronominal suffixes. You must be careful not to confuse this hirik yod with the first common singular pronominal suffix. Compare the above construct form with avi, see, no reduced vowel, and aki, my brother. those construct forms have reduced vowels, right? Is that a detail you're likely to forget? Yeah? Just remember, no one's going to hell because of it.
Now, one thing that I noticed in the over this last page, at 103, it's like all the vowels are reducing. So it looks like over here, on these feminine, singular, feminine, plural, we're only getting the nearest to the end vowel reducing. Is there a reason that, or is it just some words all have reduced and some words?
There's probably a rule for it, closed syllables, open syllables, accented, blah, blah, blah. Here's the bottom line. You could have no change of the form for construct nouns, and it would still probably work just fine. Right? Because I got two nouns together. How do I make sense of that? Oh, construct, there we go. Translate it with an of. Or make it possessive. Right? You could have no change in the form, and I could still probably figure it out just fine. Changing the form just helps me. Right? Why is the form changing? Why is the form morphing a little bit? Construct. But the point I'm making is I could just have two nouns stuck together. How do I translate that? How do I translate that? The horse farmer. I saw the horse farmer. Well, yeah, but horse isn't an adjective, right? Is it really horse farmer? I saw the horse farmer. Could it be I saw the horse of the farmer? Yeah, and if I have a little change in form there, that just helps me along. I don't have a change of form in Seuss, though, do I? If I did see the horse farmer, that's exactly what I'd see in the text, and I'll still be able to figure it out. All right? So it really is not as hard as it seems. It's kind of nifty that he gives us all these details, because 10 years from now when you're having coffee with the pastor of the church down the street, you can sit there and talk about all the rules for vowel reduction and construct forms and laugh about it and how you forgot them all, right? So there's a reason for everything. But at the same time, if somebody that went to, say, a Southern Baptist Seminary is sitting there and says that to you and you go, huh? That wouldn't be good. So now you know. See? So you can feel real confident going out and having coffee with other pastors, see? Because you've been there. All right. It talks about bayit and ayin, which we've talked about already. Segolate nouns, the singular, absolute, or lexical form of a segolate noun is identical to its singular construct form. In other words, melech is the same whether it's construct or not. Plural, you get the typical sere yod ending for kings. All right. Nouns ending in segol he have a singular construct form with a patat he ending. So sadeh becomes sadeh. No, I'm sorry, that's not a patat, that's a tseri. My glasses blurred on me there. All right, and makneh becomes makneh. So that's just kind of an oddity right there. It's one of the few things that is kind of not according to the pattern at that point. All right, good. Like the Calvinist said, man, I'm glad that's over with. Page 107 for vocabulary. All right, say it after me. Evan. Stone. Adamah. Ground. Oyev. Enemy. Bashar. Flesh. Barit. Covenant. And that's a feminine word, so remember that that's feminine. Gavul. Boundary, territory. Kyle. So now that makes you think something different of the word Kyle, doesn't it? The name Kyle. Strength, wealth, army. Chesed. That's an awesome word. Loyal love is how I would translate that. Loyalty, loving kindness, sometimes it's translated. That's a great word, isn't it? Kodesh. New moon or month. Yad. Hand, and that's feminine. Yadot, plural. Mavet. Death. Mot, irregular construct form. Mateh. Rod, staff, tribe. Midbar. Pasturage or wilderness. Ode. Yet, still, again. 8. Time, and that's feminine. Olah. Burnt offering. My mind thinks of the whole burnt offering, and that's kind of easy for me to remember. Panim. Face. And pane is a construct form. And we saw that form, pane, in Genesis already, didn't we? Yeah, so the spirit over the face of the deep. Tzon. A flock or small herd of sheep or goats. Rego. Foot, and that's feminine. Well, you can read about whether Hosea married a prostitute or not, and some advanced information. All right. Maybe we better change the tape, but we can get through this chapter pretty readily, I think.